On a Tuesday afternoon in March, standing in our kitchen, Veronica crossed her arms, radiating victory. She said, "With your current financial status, Dylan, you can't battle for custody. Kenneth Ashford costs $800 an hour. You'll be bringing a bus bench attorney to court while I walk out with full custody in this house." Veronica tapped her manicured nails on the countertop I paid for. "You're going to appear unprepared," she added. "I've met Kenneth 3 times already. He's confident about his chances. Given your work schedule and my flexibility as a consultant, he's certain the judge will rule in my favor. He's won 41 out of the last 43 custody cases." I was loading the dishwasher while our children, Isabel, 7, and Ethan, 5, were at my mother's house for the afternoon. I maintained a calm tone despite her laughter. "We'll see," she said mockingly. "That's all you have, Dylan. I've already prepared myself." Kenneth Ashford, a name frequently employed as a weapon against me. He was the costliest divorce attorney within the state, renowned for draining resources and winning custody disputes that should have been evenly split. He had represented the wives of 3 professionals I know, all of whom lost their children and financial prospects. One of them, a colleague named Bradley, was forced to sell his car to meet alimony payments. "I've taken note of your frequent mentions of him over a dozen times," I said, placing the dish carefully in its rack. "It's beneficial that you comprehend the real situation here." She moved nearer, adopting her usual tone meant to make me feel insignificant. "You invest 60 hours weekly in finance and travel twice a month for client meetings. I work from home. You are rarely present while I am always around. The children are accustomed to my routine." 95% of divorces are settled out of court due to the high cost of a 2-day custody trial, which can reach up to $25,000 in legal fees. Top divorce attorneys often aim not for court victories, but to financially drain their opponents until they can no longer fight. The choice of attorney is crucial, as it can determine the outcome even before a judge sees the case. However, one man effectively flipped this strategy on its head. "Why would a judge disturb their stability for a father who's never home?" I said, drying my hands on a towel, looking at her intently. "The woman I married 9 years ago was intelligent, career-oriented, supportive of my endeavors, and dreamed of building a life together with me." The woman in front of me had morphed into an unfamiliar figure, one who was meticulously orchestrating our divorce with the same strategic precision she previously employed for her marketing projects. "You appear quite certain," you said. "I am assured." Kenneth declared that our case is ironclad. He's already drafted the custody proposal. He displayed the timeline to me. "We'll be in court by May, and by June, I will have full custody of the children. If you're fortunate, you'll see them every other weekend." She retrieved her purse from the counter, inspecting her reflection in the microwave door. She had a dinner engagement with him tonight to discuss deposition tactics. "Don't keep me waiting," she departed. I heard her car leave our driveway, the sound of gravel being crushed under her tires gradually merging into the tranquil evening silence. For 60 seconds I stood there, taking deep breaths, allowing my anger to transform into something productive, something I could channel into action. Then I made my way to my home office, locked the door, and booted up my laptop. For 2 years, my marriage was faltering, but for 6 months prior, I had been readying myself for this particular conflict. It began last September when Veronica casually dropped Kenneth Ashford's name into conversation. It wasn't about us. Rather, it concerned her friend Claire, who had recently hired him to dismantle her husband in a custody battle. Veronica spoke of the legal strategy with genuine admiration, detailing how Kenneth had drowned the husband in motions and discovery requests until he ran out of funds and surrendered. As a result, Claire secured the children, the house, and 70% of the retirement accounts. That discussion triggered something within me. I began to observe closely. I noticed Veronica was increasingly engrossed in her phone, hastily hiding the screen as I approached. I observed her frequenting the gym at unusual hours, such as 10 p.m. on a Wednesday and 6 a.m. on a Saturday. I observed that she resumed contact with her college roommate Neil via social media and met him for coffee twice within a week, followed by 4 meetings the next week. I chose not to question her about it, instead opting to record the events. I began maintaining a personal journal, chronicling each instance of Isabel's soccer practices, parent-teacher conferences, doctor appointments, and bedtime stories, logging them with dates, times, and details in a password-protected document. When traveling for work, I made daily calls to the children at 7 p.m., recording the duration of each conversation in my phone log. In October, I enlisted the services of a private investigator named Thomas Chen. Within 3 weeks, he substantiated the affair with Neil. He discovered evidence of their trysts at 2 hotels per week, both the downtown Marriott Room 412, which were charged to a credit card Neil believed was confidential, but was captured in Thomas's surveillance images. Additionally, he found that she spent her weekends at Neil's apartment, allegedly attending yoga retreats. The images were meticulous, time-stamped, acquired lawfully from public areas, but I sought more than proof of infidelity. I yearned to comprehend her tactic. Thomas assisted in installing a voice-activated recorder in the car, a move fully legal in our state as we jointly owned the vehicle. Over 2 months, the recordings disclosed everything essential. Veronica had been contemplating divorce since August. Before she requested marriage counseling, she'd consulted Kenneth Ashford. Their discussions revolved around strategies to conceal assets, specifically underestimating her consulting business to avoid property division. Despite my adjustments in work schedule to coach Isabel's soccer team and attend every Ethan's school event, Veronica planned to portray me as an absent father. The conversations between her and Kenneth were particularly revealing. She meticulously followed his instructions on constructing a case, recording all instances of work-related travel, journaling missed family dinners, even those planned during work events, and crafting a story of neglect and emotional absence. However, one conversation from November stood out: Veronica and Kenneth at lunch, discussing finances. "He earns well," Veronica remarked, "but he has no savings. He spends it all on the mortgage, children's activities, our lifestyle. If we prolong a legal battle, he'll run out of money in 6 months." Kenneth had chuckled. "That's when they settle, when they see their money draining away on legal costs and know they'll lose anyway. We can extend this through discovery, depositions, motions. By the time we reach trial, he'll be eager to end it, desperate for a settlement." However, she had underestimated one crucial factor, assuming I had no funds. Veronica understood my annual salary as a senior director at a wealth management firm was $340,000. While it afforded us a comfortable lifestyle, it wasn't extravagant. What she didn't know was the $4.2 million trust fund left to me by my grandfather when I turned 23. I hadn't shared this with her not due to deceit, but because my grandfather's will included instructions written on his old manual typewriter. The money was intended for my security and my future children's well-being. It was instructed that no one should treat me differently because of it. I was expected to live my life autonomously. Throughout our marriage, I had lived on my salary alone. The trust remained in investments, gradually increasing without disturbance, managed by a Boston-based firm with no ties to my work or personal life. Veronica never saw the account statements as they were sent to a P.O. box I established solely for this purpose and only reviewed quarterly. When I discovered that she was contemplating a divorce and planned to use Kenneth Ashford against me, I initiated calls. Initially contacted my wealth manager in Boston, a man named Gregory, who has managed both my grandfather's funds for 3 decades and mine for the past 17 years. I granted him permission to liquidate $2.8 million worth of assets, ensuring that the principal reserved for Isabel and Ethan remained untouched. Subsequently, I reached out to a corporate attorney, Patricia Hale, whom I had met at a conference 2 years prior, specializing in business acquisitions with a knack for creative problem-solving. Over coffee at a downtown cafe in November, I disclosed my intention to acquire Ashford and Partners law firm. Patricia calmly set down her cup after hearing my request, having encountered more unconventional demands before. "Is Kenneth Ashford's law firm what you're referring to?" "Yes, it's a firm with 30 employees, 8 partners, 22 associates and staff, and an annual revenue of approximately $14 million. Its client base is largely comprised of half the affluent divorce cases in the state." She leaned forward. "What intrigues you is that your wife employed him to undermine you during your divorce proceedings, and before we reach the deposition phase, you wish to retaliate by taking control of him." Patricia fell silent for 5 seconds, then her smile was quick, sharp, and menacing. "I find you intriguing, Dylan. This is one of the most captivating acquisition prospects I've come across in years. Let me reach out to some contacts." Ashford and Partners wasn't publicly traded, but like many law firms, it had internal power struggles that could be exploited. Patricia spent 2 weeks conducting research. She examined corporate documents, consulted legal recruiters, interviewed ex-associates who had departed the firm. What she uncovered was illuminating. Kenneth Ashford is the main partner and public figure of the firm, renowned for his courtroom triumphs and aggressive strategies. However, he only holds a 35% stake in the company. The remaining 65% was distributed among 7 other associates, with 3 of them, including the firms, being part of this group. Second in earnings, Thomas Blackwell had been attempting to push Kenneth out for 18 months. His primary objective: Kenneth was a skilled litigator but an ineffective manager. He made decisions unilaterally that led to the firm losing clients. He charged personal expenses, such as club memberships and lavish dinners with potential clients who didn't materialize, along with a luxury car lease for client development, to the partnership. Under his management, he fostered an unpleasant work environment where associates exhausted themselves and left after 2 years instead of staying on the path to partnership. Thomas Blackwell and his allies desired Kenneth's removal, but they couldn't afford to buy him out. Kenneth's 35% share was approximately valued at $5 million according to the firm's current valuation, and liquidating such a large amount would jeopardize the firm's operations. They were in a deadlock. Prior to my arrival with cash and a purpose unrelated to the economic standing of the law firm, Patricia facilitated a gathering with Thomas. The encounter transpired at a downtown steakhouse on a chilly Friday in December. Thomas was 53, sporting silver hair and an evidently tired appearance. He had spent 28 years in family law practice. After ordering scotch, he delved immediately into the matter. "Patricia mentioned you're interested in purchasing this firm," he stated. "What's your reason for doing so?" I disclosed everything in entirety. The affair, the secret recordings, Veronica's sessions with Kenneth, the intention to drain me financially and portray me as a negligent father. The realization that Kenneth had been orchestrating such tactics for years, while coaching my wife on how to distort the truth about my familial involvement. Thomas listened attentively without interruption. Upon conclusion, he leaned back in his seat and contemplated his scotch. "Kenneth has been carrying out this scheme for a long time," he murmured softly. "He doesn't merely represent clients, he manipulates them. He shows them ways to control the system, skillfully deceiving, draining their spouses financially. I've observed him guiding both women and men in a fair manner, using tactics that may be legal but ethically questionable. Bankrupted, he incites conflict instead of seeking reasonable resolutions. Despite this, you have continued to collaborate with him. For 2 years, I've been attempting to separate myself, but my shares are entangled. My retirement is at stake. At 53, I can't afford to abandon what I've established." Looking me straight in the eye, he says, "If you're committed to this, I can rally 4 partners to your side, giving us a majority hold. What's your asking price?" Ken walks away with nothing more than his contractually guaranteed share. Purchase out his 35% for $3.5 million below market value, using his mismanagement and morality clause violations as justification. The rest of us remain partners with adjusted equity shares. Upon reaching 51% ownership, we will reorganize the firm as Blackwell and Partners within a span of 90 days. Your ongoing cases, including Kenneth's, will be redistributed to other lawyers due to potential conflicts of interest, such as your wife's case, which necessitates his withdrawal as her counsel. Since she requires new representation swiftly, approximately 7 days remain before her deposition deadline may pose significant issues. I made an agreement. The handshake was firm, showing both desperation and determination. Thomas inquired about the future of the firm post-divorce. The decision to either keep or sell it depends on our ability to manage it profitably without Kenneth's involvement. Given that half our clients remain with us due to me and the other senior partners, not Kenneth, and the associates eagerly anticipate his departure, we are well equipped to handle it. The acquisition progressed swifter than Veronica's romance. Patricia orchestrated it as a private equity acquisition through Greenwich Ventures LLC, my LLC based in Delaware and wholly owned by my trust. By mid-January, I had procured written agreements from Thomas and his 3 aligned partners. Besides them, Patricia had found a potential 5th partner who was hesitant but could be persuaded with the right motivations, like an enhanced equity share, and pledged funding for his mentorship program. We put forth the offer to the entire partnership on January 28th during a special meeting. Kenneth attempted to oppose it. He leveled accusations of betrayal against Thomas, deemed the valuation unrealistic, and hinted at potential lawsuits for breach of fiduciary duty. At the forefront of the conference table, where prior plans for divorce with Veronica were hatched, Kenneth contested this aggressive acquisition, asserting it violated the partnership agreement. However, Patricia had scrutinized the partnership agreement more meticulously than Kenneth's own lawyer. The company's operational documents permitted private equity investment upon a straightforward majority partner vote. Furthermore, they encompassed a morality clause allowing for compulsory buyouts due to conduct that significantly harmed the firm's reputation or fiscal status, given it materially damaged either. Patricia produced corroborative evidence. 3 client complaints filed over the past 18 months concerning Kenneth's questionable ethical practices. Billing records displaying $47,000 in personal expenses charged to the partnership. Departing associate interview notes portraying a hostile work environment, and financial forecasts revealing revenue decline coinciding with Kenneth's management decisions. In the vote, it was 5-3 for the acquisition. Kenneth had 45 days to accept a $3.5 million buyout offer or face expulsion under the partnership agreement's morality clause and breach provisions. He opted for the money. The sum of $3.5 million was paid out in 3 installments, with an initial payment of $1 million. On March 1st, I gained majority ownership of Ashford and Partners. On March 3rd, Veronica informed me that I was financially incapable of contesting custody. On March 15th, our first deposition took place. The deposition was set for 2 p.m. in the firm's conference room, where Kenneth had met with Veronica a dozen times before, and I briefed Thomas and Patricia thoroughly. The disclosure had to occur at a particular time and manner to ensure maximum psychological impact. Veronica arrived 15 minutes early, accompanied by Kenneth, for the scheduled meeting. 1:58 p.m., I entered the conference room with Patricia Hale, observing Veronica and Kenneth prepare. Veronica radiated assurance in a cream blazer and pearls, while Kenneth seemed poised to win after winning similar cases before. They were sharing a joke, relaxed and victorious. Upon spotting Patricia, Veronica's smile wavered. Recognizing her, Kenneth recalled their previous court encounters where Patricia had defeated him in a contract dispute 2 years back. "Dylan," Veronica said coolly, regaining composure. "Why have you engaged Patricia Hale? How do you plan to pay for her?" I had shared with Veronica about the possibility of hiring a competent lawyer for the divorce 2 weeks prior. She knew that Patricia's retainer was $50,000 and her hourly rate $950, which seemed to reassure her when she assumed I couldn't afford such services. I'd informed her I was utilizing a relative's acquaintance for a reduced rate. "I handled it," I stated. We took our seats at a polished mahogany table. The court reporter, an elderly woman with likely thousands of depositions under her belt, arranged her stenography equipment at the head of the table. Kenneth deftly opened his folder. "Let's proceed," he said, his voice radiating the distinctive courtroom authority that made clients feel secure and opponents apprehensive. "Mr. Reeves, this deposition is being recorded in the matter of the lawsuit between Reeves v. Reeves." The conference room door swung open. Thomas Blackwell entered, accompanied by 2 associates carrying bankers' boxes. Kenneth's countenance paled suddenly, not just lightened, but paled dramatically. The color seemed to drain from his face as if someone had pulled a plug. "What is this?" he demanded, nearly standing up from his chair. Thomas placed a document on the table directly in front of Kenneth, with the calculated precision of a man who'd been waiting 18 months for this moment. Effective from March 1st, this firm has been acquired by Greenwich Ventures LLC, now operating as Blackwell and Partners, majority owned by Dylan Reeves. Consequently, I'm obligated by ethical standards and our client agreements to disclose that we can no longer represent your interests due to an incompatible conflict. Veronica appeared bewildered. "What?" Thomas elaborated further, evidently pleased with the situation. "All case materials, records, and confidential communications pertaining to Reeves v. Reeves are being isolated and safeguarded to prevent any misuse. Mrs. Reeves, it is essential that you secure new legal representation promptly. Mr. Ashford can no longer act as your counsel in this lawsuit." Kenneth rose from his seat completely. "This is unprofessional and unethical." "This is Patricia. You can't genuinely believe this will stand up right." "What are you referring to, Kenneth?" Patricia asked in a soothing tone. "To rules regarding legal business acquisitions, changes in equity through partnership agreements with majority votes, and conflict of interest regulations that you've cited countless times," she replied, unfolding her folder. "I have the documented vote results from the partnership right here, clearly showing a 5-3 decision given with proper notice to all partners. You agreed to the buyout, Kenneth. You received the payment. Which implies you no longer have grounds to challenge the firm's management," Veronica stated, her eyes fixed on me. "You purchased the company," she whispered. "Yes, I purchased the firm," I confirmed, maintaining a steady, calm tone, similar to the one I used while loading the dishwasher 4 weeks ago. You stated you couldn't afford it, you stated, yet here we are. She was now struggling to maintain her composure as her once firm confidence wavered. I had mentioned a visit. I subtly leaned back in my seat, keeping our gaze locked. You presumed I was financially strapped due to your assumptions. You thought I'd bring a bus bench lawyer, making me appear weak to justify your intentions. You believed Kenneth Ashford was invincible since you had never seen me challenge authority. You were wrong about all of those expensive presumptions, Veronica. She shifted her gaze towards Kenneth. Rectify this situation. You stated it wouldn't occur, that you would handle everything. Kenneth avoided her gaze, instead focusing on Thomas and the banker's boxes full of case files now under my firm's ownership. He fully grasped the turn of events and his defeat. I cannot, Kenneth whispered, revealing a previously unseen human side, defeated. Thomas informed Veronica, I no longer work here, and handed her a business card. Since I'm no longer your representative, Mrs. Reeves, you'll need a new family law attorney. I can supply a list of qualified attorneys if that would be helpful. Given the situation, I advise you to act promptly. You have 7 days to respond to the custody filings submitted by Mr. Reeves' attorney yesterday. Finding an able counsel who can familiarize themselves with your case in such a short time frame will prove difficult. Veronica accepted the card, her hands now trembling. The tailored blazer she had chosen to convey confidence seemed ill-fitting, as if it no longer matched her reality. Patricia opened her folder at a measured pace, affording Veronica time to process events. In the meantime, Patricia began, let's discuss those filings. Reeves is arguing for primary physical custody of both kids, Isabel and Ethan, citing substantial proof of parental alienation, recorded infidelity impacting their home environment, and tactical distortion of his role in their lives. With a louder-than-expected thud, she pushed a pile of documents towards Veronica. These photos, time-stamped over the past 6 months, depict Reeves at every soccer practice, school meeting, and medical appointment. Affidavits from teachers like Ms. Rodriguez from Isabel's school and Mr. Patterson from Ethan's kindergarten confirm his constant presence and active participation. His phone records also demonstrate that he calls the children every night when he travels for work, with an average of 23 minutes per call. Patricia took out another thick folder, and it landed on the table with a sound that startled Veronica. Inside were transcripts of conversations between Mrs. Reeves and Mr. Ashford about deceiving Mr. Reeves regarding his fatherly responsibilities. These recordings were obtained lawfully, as they shared ownership of the vehicle. The Ethics Council has assessed them and deemed them admissible. Veronica nervously took the transcripts. Her gaze scanned the opening page, revealing her own words about our financial situation and my impending insolvency in 6 months, discussions about documenting instances I was absent, and planned family dinners scheduled during known work obligations. "Did you record me?" she asked hoarsely. "The recording was made legally in a vehicle we both own," I replied. "Just as you meticulously recorded each business trip and dinner I missed due to obligatory client meetings, Veronica, it seems your lesson on the importance of documentation has been well received. I'm a swift learner." Kenneth, standing up with his briefcase, declared the deposition concluded. "Agreed," Patricia replied calmly. "We'll encounter you in court, or to be precise, Mrs. Reeves and her prospective legal counsel within the next week." Regrettably, Kenneth won't be present due to a conflict of interest. Thomas and the associates gathered their materials. Kenneth exited silently, not looking back as the door softly closed. Veronica remained frozen in her chair, clutching the transcripts. The court reporter was packing up, likely relieved she wouldn't have to transcribe the impending outburst. I too stood up while Patricia efficiently packed her briefcase. "In all honesty," I told Veronica, expressing my sincerity, "I never wanted this to turn into a battle. I wanted our marriage to succeed. If that wasn't an option, I desired a healthy co-parenting relationship for our children. I would have consented to equal custody and equitable distribution of assets, but you chose Kenneth Ashford, you chose a scorched earth approach, you chose to misrepresent me as a father." Picking up my coat, I continued. She looked up at me, her eyes red, but no tears had fallen yet. She was still too stunned to cry. "How long have you been preparing for this?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible. "Since September," I replied, "the day you first mentioned Kenneth's name with that gleam in your eye as if you'd found the ultimate weapon." I buttoned my coat. "You were so engrossed in what Kenneth could do to me, you never considered what I could do to Kenneth or to you." Patricia trailed behind as I left. In the corridor beyond the conference room, a subtle smile graced her features. It was immensely gratifying. "This isn't the end yet," I stated. "True, but now you hold the upper hand. She'll concede, she must." Within 3 days, Veronica engaged a new lawyer, a competent woman named Michelle Park, who swiftly recognized the predicament she had inherited. Michelle reached out to Patricia and proposed a meeting before initiating any depositions or motions. Our encounter took place at Patricia's office on March 22. It was evident that Michelle had spent the prior week examining every detail, from the custody documents to the evidence folders, transcripts, and timeline. "My client is open to negotiations," Michelle declared without preface. Her eyes revealed exhaustion from spending numerous nights attempting to convey truth to an unwilling ear. She acknowledged that the custody situation had undergone a substantial shift. "What's her proposal?" Patricia inquired, pen hovering over her legal pad. 60-40 custody arrangement during the school year, favoring your client, with financial equity buyout of the house at current market value. The client maintains ownership of the property, but must refinance to cover her spouse's share. She waives any allegations related to parental alienation or negligence. A fair distribution of remaining assets occurs financially. Upon re-examination with Patricia, it was noted that we had previously discussed a 70-30 custody arrangement instead. In this proposed agreement, the children reside with your client from Monday through Friday during the school year while spending alternating weekends and one weeknight with you. You retain your premarital retirement accounts without any interference. Your client is expected to pay $340,000 for your equity share within 90 days rather than abiding by the refinancing timeline. A signed statement acknowledging past unfounded allegations about your parenting as strategic will also be required from her. Michelle examined her notes before returning her gaze to you, suggesting that she will not agree to this statement since it asks for an admission of dishonesty. Veronica lied about my involvement with our children, as evidenced by the recorded conversations involving Kenneth Ashford. If she refuses to acknowledge this in a statement, we will proceed to trial where these recordings will be presented in court for all to hear. This includes the local legal community, potential future allies of hers, and potential clients. Given that divorce proceedings are public records, the recordings could be admitted as evidence and may even be covered by reporters who cover family court. Michelle reluctantly agreed to discuss the matter with Veronica 4 days later. In the end, the custody arrangement awarded me primary physical custody during the school year, with our children residing at my house, attending their current schools, and following their regular routines. Every other weekend and during summer breaks, she would have them. Within 2 months, she planned to remortgage the house, giving me $340,000 for my share, less than half of its current market value. Yet money was no longer a concern. Michelle delivered it to me, and I read the statement thrice. Veronica Reeves admitted that her statements about Dylan Reeves' role in our children's lives during divorce proceedings were false and manipulative. In reality, Dylan Reeves has been and remains an active, loving father to Isabel and Ethan Reeves. I regretted any damage these untrue statements might have inflicted. Signed, dated, notarized, it was a done deal. The divorce was finalized on April 30 in Judge Patricia Morno's courtroom, a woman in her early 60s known for her no-nonsense approach and extensive experience with various divorce scenarios over the past 2 decades as a judge. Judge Morno scrutinized the settlement agreement meticulously, posing queries regarding child custody arrangement, property division, and house refinancing timeline. After finishing her perusal, she gazed at both of us through her reading glasses. "Mr. Reeves, are you content with these conditions?" I replied affirmatively. She directed her gaze towards Veronica next. Her voice was barely discernible, to which Judge Morno nodded. The decree was signed by Judge Morno using a fountain pen, the sound of ink hitting paper echoing decisively. "The marriage is terminated. The custody arrangement is established as stipulated. I anticipate both parties to honor this contract sincerely." She cast a look at Veronica and me. "Your children require parents who can coexist harmoniously. I trust you'll bear this in mind." In unison, we affirmed our agreement, signaling the conclusion of the proceedings. That afternoon, I collected Isabel and Ethan from school. On a sunny and warm Friday, the kind that signals the end of winter, we paused for an ice cream treat en route home. It wasn't a celebration, given my children were present, but rather a long-standing tradition for Fridays. Isabel opted for chocolate chip cookie dough, Ethan chose vanilla with rainbow sprinkles, while I stuck to coffee, as usual. Amidst the melted ice cream on her chin, Isabel inquired about my attendance at her soccer game the following day. "Mommy coming to my soccer game tomorrow?" To which I responded honestly, "I don't think so, dear." However, I assured her, "But I'll be there." Ethan dozed off during the drive home, his vanilla ice cream-streaked hands gripping his beloved dinosaur plushie tightly. The simple sentence that flowed from Isabel was priceless, worth every cent spent on our family. I brought him to his room, washed his hands with a warm towel, put him to bed though it was just 5 p.m., leaving him puzzled upon waking up an hour later. Meanwhile, Isabel finished her homework at the kitchen table, while I prepared spaghetti with meat sauce, her favorite dish. Following dinner, we watched half a movie together. Subsequently, I read them 2 chapters from our ongoing book, The Chronicles of Narnia, which Isabel adored and Ethan endured since he got to stay up with his sister. Once they were asleep, I occupied myself in my home office with my laptop. I transferred $400,000 back into the trust fund, money that I had taken out for acquisition but didn't use. The company was profitable, displaying enhanced morale and staff retention rates only 2 months into restructuring. Finally, I glanced at my calendar. Isabel had a soccer tournament scheduled for the next weekend, with 3 games on Saturday and possibly 2 more on Sunday if her team reached the finals. On Wednesday, Ethan embarked on a school trip to the Science Museum. I had previously agreed to accompany as a chaperone. Thursday was slated for a client presentation, which I needed to prepare following the kids' bedtime. Just everyday life, the lifestyle I've consistently lived, portrayed by Veronica as neglect and absence. My mind wandered to Kenneth Ashford, likely ensconced in a fresh office or possibly working remotely, plotting his next case, pondering how he'd lost grip of his own company. I pondered if he'd gleaned any lessons from the experience. Thoughts also drifted to Veronica, isolated within the home she had fiercely fought to retain, recognizing her carefully crafted victory had morphed into a total downfall. I questioned if she too had acquired some insight, and my thoughts returned to my grandfather's words in his will, penned 20 years ago on that antiquated manual typewriter. This wealth is for your safety and your children's future. Ensure no one treats you unfairly because of it. He was spot on. Money didn't alter me. It merely presented choices when someone threatened what truly mattered. Closing the laptop, I headed to bed, anticipating a soccer tournament the next day, exactly where I desired to be. Epilogue 6MO and THS later. Blackwell and Partners swiftly adapted to its new pace, with Thomas assuming the managing role. The firm's associate retention rate rose by 34% within the first quarter post Kenneth's departure. 3 disgruntled clients returned due to Kenneth's harsh methods, while 2 significant corporate entities opted for family law representation under the belief that the firm had reestablished stability under fresh leadership. I retained my majority stake, but relinquished active participation in daily affairs. My role now involved financial monitoring and strategic planning, aspects I grasped from my background in wealth management. 1. Thomas and other partners manage the legal practice, efficient except when Kenneth interferes. The firm became profitable in just 4 months post-transition. My $2.8 million investment would recover within 3 years, later providing true passive income. My grandfather would be pleased. Veronica relocated to a 3-bedroom apartment off-town in May, meticulously decorating it for the kids' visits. The children found it acceptable. It had a pool and playground, while their rooms resembled their rooms at my house to preserve consistency. She began dating Neil openly after the divorce was finalized. Initially, she denied her affair with him during depositions, but photographic evidence forced an admission. I learned through mutual acquaintances, still in contact with both of us, that she had informed others I'd taken control of the firm acquisition as a betrayal. 2. Thomas and the associates manage the legal practice. They excel except when Kenneth obstructs them. The firm demonstrated profitability within 4 months of transition. My $2.8 million investment would balance in 3 years, thereafter generating true passive income. My grandfather would approve. Veronica shifted to a 3-bedroom condo across town in May, taking great care to make it feel like home for the children during their visits. The kids found it satisfactory. It included a pool and playground, while their rooms mirrored those at my house to preserve uniformity. She started openly dating Neil post-divorce. During depositions, she initially denied her relationship with him. Only photographic proof compelled her to confess. I've learned through mutual friends who still communicate with both of us that she told people I had ambushed her with the firm acquisition, alleging it as a betrayal. 3. The legal practice is managed by Thomas and fellow partners, except when Kenneth disrupts their efficiency. Profitable within 4 months post-transition, the firm provided a return on my $2.8 million investment in 3 years, later providing passive income. My grandfather would have been content. Veronica moved to a condo with 3 bedrooms across town in May, decorating it carefully for her children's visits. The kids approved of it, and they enjoyed the pool and playground. Their rooms were identical to those at my house to maintain consistency. She started dating Neil openly following the finalization of the divorce. Until confronted with photographic proof, she denied their affair during depositions. I learned through mutual friends who still speak to both of us that Veronica claimed I had betrayed her when I took control of the firm acquisition. I chose not to alter the story. Those acquainted with me were aware of the facts. The children adapted more smoothly than anticipated. Isabel made the all-star soccer team in June, and I altered my work schedule to attend every practice and game as planned. Ethan began kindergarten in August, and I accompanied him on his first day, guiding him to class and picking him up later, listening for 30 minutes straight about his experiences at the block center and the kid named Marcus who could construct towers taller than others. During weekends when they stayed with Veronica, I caught up on work, maintained the house, and reassured myself that this balance was beneficial, that children require both parents in their lives, even during contentious legal battles. On a September Saturday, a year after I had been readying for the war Veronica was unaware of, I took the kids to the park near our home. After scoring 3 goals in her morning match against Riverside, Isabel was brimming with energy as she ran laps around the playground apparatus. Meanwhile, Ethan was intently gathering leaves, believing he could distinguish every tree species in the park if he had a sufficient number of specimens. We enjoyed ice cream again afterwards, as it was customary on Saturdays. It's important to maintain consistency, and because today is Saturday and this is our routine. Isabel swung her legs from the bench at the picnic table where we sat, asking me, "Dad, are you content?" The query took me by surprise. At 7, she was already perceptive about adult feelings, causing my heart to constrict slightly. I looked at her, shrewd as a fox, bearing a resemblance to Veronica, but with my dogged persistence and penchant for direct questions. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied. "I am happy." "Good," she said. "I like living with you during the week. I appreciate our routine." Ethan glanced up from his leaf collection. "Me too." "Is it possible for us to have spaghetti tonight, given we had it only a few days ago?" The notion of repeatedly enjoying spaghetti may seem monotonous, but the question lingered in my mind. Was I content? Not because I'd triumphantly ended the divorce. Not because I'd outsmarted Kenneth Ashford or witnessed Veronica's strategy unravel before my eyes. Not because I'd demonstrated a point about underestimation and tactics. I was joyful because my children were with me. Because I'd defended what truly mattered. Because I'd shown that being underestimated doesn't equate to weakness. It's merely incorrect information others hold. Veronica believed I was financially incapable of a fight, yet she was mistaken about the funds. However, more significantly, she was wrong about me. She assumed I'd crumble under stress, that I'd arrive unprepared, that I'd accept Kenneth Ashford's terms because I lacked the means or determination to retaliate. Her strategy hinged on those assumptions, all of which proved incorrect. After consuming my coffee ice cream, as reliable as ever even after so many months, I observed my children frolic in the sunny afternoon. Isabel was tutoring Ethan on proper monkey bar climbing, maintaining a grip on his waist as he stretched for the next rung. They were secure. They were cherished. They were with me. The rest was merely minutiae.